I don't think we'd have had a better speaker here than Mr. Subbiah to talk about the Chettiars and Chettinad in general. It's an amazing community. There have been many business groups in the south of India amongst the Chettiars. But I don't think, and I say this very, very genuinely, that any group matches the absolute, the pleasure to deal with openness and maturity of the Murugappas. So the floor to Mr. Subbiah.
We belong to the Vaisya caste, and Vaisyas were all the basically business people and traders and things like that. The Shreshti was the normal Sanskrit word, Shreshti. And if you see that word Shreshti, and you'll find it common all over the country. Chetti in Bangalore and Chetti in Andhra, Seth in the western part of the world, and similarly Chetti in Tamil Nadu. So there are about 20 communities of Chettis who are all traders and money lenders and people like that in this part of Tamil Nadu, in Tamil Nadu. So this is so we are part of that community and we are a small, very small community of Chettiars in this part of the world. And I'll get to the history, but even today, our total population of Chettiars, of Nagarathars, who belong to this area, is only 120,000 or 120,000 people world over. So that's it's still very, very small. But we did make an impact in those days, but I'll come to that. I'm not a public speaker. I'm being, as he says, a hard-nosed, abrasive businessman. I started my life in the abrasive business. One of the businesses that we have is carburetor grinding, and I grind others, but I've been ground to earth, kind of a thing.
And the office building in which he used to sit was called Dare House.
That's nothing to do with me. That's nothing to do with me. To do with that Welshman called Thomas Parry who built it. And Nattukkottai means the word Nattukkottai means fort. So we built houses in this area when we moved into this area as fortresses and forts, kind of a thing. So that's why we call Nattukkottai Chettiars in this part of the world. We are not able to trace the history completely, although when I conclude, I'll tell you something that I've been working on along with some researchers, and it's very fascinating to understand where we could have come from. But that's not the history that we really know up to now. Pre-1800s, we mainly traded in salt, pearls from Rameshwaram, diamonds from Golconda, rice from the Kaveri Delta, and things like that. We were basically traders and merchants who were buying and selling things. So if you see the names that we have as a community, there are names called Bhairavan Chettiar. Bhairav means diamond. Similarly, Muthuram, pearl. So these are the kind of names that we find amongst Chettiars. So there are lots of people who are connected with these kind of trades in the old days. What is the history, the early history, as we've all been tried or understood, was that we seem to have come from Naganadu. Now, I have now researched to show that this is not really the case. But most people in this area and most authorities will talk, when they talk about Chettinad, will talk that we came from Naganadu, but there is no evidence whatsoever on that. But I'll come to that in my conclusion as to say what I think are the possibilities. We really start, the earliest period from which we can start is the Tondamandalam, from where we may have come, which is the Kanjivaram area, where Tondanadu, from where we were trading in that area of Mylapore and Mahabalipuram, ports of Mylapore and Mahabalipuram. And then from there, we moved on because the tax rates were very, very high at the Kanjivaram Pallava thing. We moved on to the Chettinad, which is headquartered in Tanjavur and Pumpuar. So moved from the ports of Mylapore and Mahabalipuram to Pumpuar, which is still around, and there's a temple there which is very clearly a temple which is similar, very similar, and is still managed by the Chettiars. So there is enough evidence to show that we moved to the Chettinad area where, and there are 5 very, very important Tamil literature poems called Silappatikaram, Manimegalai and things like that. All of them, it refers to the kind of Chettiars that we were used for overseas trading and also the internal trading by the kings of those days. So but whether we can connect the Nattukkottai Chettiars to that is still in doubt. I know we have not been able to get exact thing, but the story goes that we had the rights to crown the king of Chettinad because he found that we were the most honest and the most straightforward people, and who not only did business but we also did a lot of philanthropic work around that area. So this is the reason why we were given the honor, and there are a number of stanzas available in some of the poems, Tamil poems, to show that we had the rights to crown the king every time the new king came into power.
You mean perform the
crowning ceremony. So that's where really we did extremely well. But then we had to move from Chettinad. Again, only stories that we hear. There's no evidence available. To Panjinadu. This area is part of the Panjinadu. Madurai was from Tanjavur, which was the headquarters for Chettinad in those days. We had to move to the Madurai area or the Panjinadu area, which is this area where we are right now. Now, why did we move? It's around the 13th century that we have moved around here. 13th, 14th century that we may have moved around here is what the history says. And there was a Sundarapandya who was the king of. There are 3 possible reasons. Given in our history, in our this thing. Now, I don't know which one is correct because we are not able to establish it again. One is said that the Sundarapandya king asked the Chola kings, because he's having problems with this export-import business as well as the business as a whole, and therefore he wanted a few Chettiars. So the Chola kings handed over a certain number of families to the Sundarapandya king. This is one version of it. The other version is there was a tsunami in Pumpuar, and that's also, there are some facts to show that there was a tsunami about that time, and we moved at that time interior. We didn't want to be near the sea, therefore we moved into this area, which is almost a semi-desert area. This Chettinad area is almost a semi-desert area, as you will see when you go around. The third, of course, is an absurd thing, but it's still there as a story. That one of the Chola, because the men went overseas to trade, the women were always in Parda. They didn't go out kind of. So one of the days when the king was going around in Tanjavur and in the Pumpuar area, he found a young girl who had come to drop the sweepings of the house outside, and he found her beautiful, and he decided he wants to marry, and then he is supposed to have abducted this girl, and therefore all the women that were there at that time in residence, and all the men had gone overseas, all the men who had gone overseas had gone away, and their wives committed sati. This is another story, and therefore the Chola king lost his face and had to hand over us to the Panjinadu area. These are 3 different stories. None of us know which is the correct one. So it's for you to decide whichever one that you like. I mean, you can decide, and I'm sure the ladies will turn around and say it's this system of sati that is the worst, and therefore that must be the honest true one kind of thing. But I'll leave that to you to decide. So this is the background in terms of the history, and we came and settled here. And at that time, when he handed over to the Pandya Nadu, the king of Pandya Nadu gave us 4 villages to settle down in a temple which is still there called Ilayatangudi, one of the Sikh temples which is still there. And I belong to the Ilayatangudi temple group. I'll come to that a little later, but it's important to understand that they all settled there, and from there, and over a period of 12 years, they divided themselves into 9 different clans and moved to 9 different temple areas, which are still in existence. And we don't marry within the clan. We marry only if you belong to another temple, another clan temple. So that's the importance of this temple. So if I belong to Ilayatangudi, I cannot marry a girl from Ilayatangudi, but I can marry a girl from Mathur or Ernikoil or something, one of the other temples. But Ilayatangudi got so big that there are so many in Ilayatangudi. Now, Ilayatangudi, you can marry, but you cannot marry within the subsect. So this is another version of it which has happened over a period of time. So over the 12-year period, we split the 9 clans. Each clan temple has the 9 temples, one of which you will be visiting with Sriram. Which one are we going, Sriram?
We are going to Pilayarpatti.
Pilayarpatti, and you're going to Byron. Actually, you're visiting 2 of them. Pilayarpatti and Byron Goil are both clan temples which are still controlled and run by the Chettiars, and it's nothing to do with the Hindu Endowment Board or anybody like that. So that particular clan will run the temple. So from that 12, we started spreading, and we moved into about 96 villages in this area, of which only 75 are in existence today, because some of the villages are shrinking, and I was in one of them this morning or at lunchtime. That's so small, I'm sure in the next 10 to 15 years it won't be in existence. So people are slowly, because wherever we move, it's not just our community alone, it's everybody. I mean, that's the peculiarity of this particular community of Chettiars. The space is available for everybody. So they'll invite people to have all kinds of businesses around, or trades and skills. So they invite them to come in. So if you see the houses, you'll understand how the skills were built around this area, and you will be seeing 1 or 2 of these houses. Every skill was, and they invited them to come in. So, and even today, in our marriage custom, every single community, every single caste has a role to play. Unfortunately, these are all, because it used to be a 2-day, 3-day wedding, there's a role for the dhobi, there's a role for the barber, there's a role in my house, even today, when there's a wedding, there's a role for the Muslim. So we invited them to come and join us in our partaking of the festivities in the house. So all this is slowly vanishing, but then that's the way it was to be. Because as a trader, I had no enemies. I trade with anybody as long as I can. That was the fundamental root for this reason why we allowed and we invited everybody to come and join. So whenever we have a wedding, and you'll see, I mean, in my village today, there are about 130 Muslim families. And they will turn around and say, we will come in the evening. So when they come in the evening, there are 130 of them, plus their children. Mostly the boys will come, but the women also started coming in the last 2 weddings. So we had to have a completely separate meal arranged for them. It's all vegetarian, but it still will be done, and they'll enjoy it, and they'll come and they will participate in it. Similarly, the Brahmins, the dhobis, the barber, everybody will come and participate. When I got married, that was about 50, 60 years ago, the barber and the dhobi used to turn around and say, we close our kitchen for a whole week. Because they all eat at home. That's the way it used to be. So, but those days are changing because it's a one-day wedding when people come from New York to get married overnight and go away. So it's all changing now. Most of our villages have mixed population, and the minority in each village, nevertheless, are influential groups in our village. We still have some roles to play, and they do still allow us to participate. It's a very dry land, this area, and as you will see when you go around tomorrow and day after, it's about 1,550 square kilometers, semi-arid and not suitable for any agriculture, although there is some agriculture because of rain-fed. The boundaries are Vaigai in the south, Vellaru in the river north, and Pranmalai in the west, and the sea in the east. This is the boundary for this area, and the cities. You cross Pudukkottai when you came from Trichy on one side, in the north, and in the south it's Sivagangai. These are the broad. The present, over the last 40 years, many Nagarathar have started migrating because there is nothing here. Men used to go and trade outside, come back, but after the war and after the collapse of the Burma, we really had to go through tremendous trauma. I'll come to that a little later, but in the last 40 years, there's been a resurrection of young people educating themselves and going all over the world. So today, almost I would say about 20% of the population is outside of Chettinad. More than 20% is outside of Chettinad, but 20% is outside of the country. Majority of them are in Singapore, but US is becoming very close to that, and there are lots of them professionals, go there as professionals, but turned slowly becoming entrepreneurs also. So the entrepreneurial spirit is still there in some of them, and they are going on to become entrepreneurs. So as I said, it's almost over 10% of the population of this area is outside, abroad. The 9 temples are Kovil, are Mathur, Eliathamudi, Bairambatti. So as I said, you're going to 2 of them. I'm sure you're not interested in the numbers or the names. But what is important is within the temple we can't get married. We are called Pangalis. So within the Pangalis you cannot. So your partner, but Pangali means partner. So within the partners you cannot get married. But there are large temples like ours, the Eliathamudi, where there are pirivals. Because it's so large, we have to have bifurcation. And within the pirival you can't get married, but you can get married inter-pirivals. That's the only change that has happened probably in the last 100 years. But I don't know if you're ever going to have a chance to see a wedding, but if you want to see one, I can organize it for tomorrow morning. Just because you're all here, we'd love to have visitors and we'd love to have friends. So we'll organize a wedding tomorrow morning, but you'll have to get up early and go. The wedding is at 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning, but you all have to be dressed up and everything. But we'll organize that. But that's besides the point. But the thing is, it's a very, we don't have a priest at the time of the wedding. The priest comes in, as I said, we give a role, so that when the Brahmins came in, we gave them a role prior and after. At the time of the wedding, tying of the Mangal Sutra is done entirely by the eldest member in that community who is there present. He hands over the Mangal Sutra, which is again the Mangal Sutra, you've got to see it to believe it. There's one of it available in the New York Museum, which it so happened that when I was there, it was exhibited, which should be because, and there's one also in the Singapore Indian Museum. It's an extremely heavy it's unlike any other Mangal Sutra that you'll ever see. That Mangal Sutra used to be made out of 200 sovereigns in the old days. 100 during when I got married. Now it's in the region of about 15 or 20 sovereigns. So it's not, but it's a very peculiar design. Now, I've been trying to work on that for a long time to find out what that design is. The nearest that I'm getting to is it reminds me of the crab's claws. There is a Lakshmi, but the crab's claws are the more important and visible ones that you notice. It looks like that. So it is probably because we were overseas traders, and the rarest thing was to get, clean and full crab's claws, which they must have used for tying the tali. This is my hypothesis, but it's yet to be. There's a lot more research work to be done in this area to get down to this, but we really don't know enough about it. But the clan, the Bengalis get together for weddings. In fact, tomorrow's wedding, every Bengali who's in and around in this area, and some of them even from overseas, will come to the wedding. So without the Bengalis, the wedding is not as important as just having guests kind of thing. So the Bengalis have a very important role. You'll all have to write. This is another peculiar thing. When we attend, we all write our attendance, and depending on the number of meals that we have had, we'll have to pay. It's a very small amount. So in other words, we have not had a free meal. So these are some of the peculiarities of this particular part of the country. So the temples also, every village has its own temple, village temple, and also the clan temples. These two temples, we all pay every married couple will have to pay our dues to both the village temple and the clan temple, even today. Because these two temples used to play an extremely important role. The roles are all no longer there, but still it's important. Because the villages will decide if somebody had defaulted, for example, the village committee or the temple committee will decide that they're going to be kept aside and nobody will deal with them afterwards.
Wow.
Either within the clan or within the community. So these are the kind of checks and balances that we had, and it's very important because we were basically money lenders. And if somebody gave what's called the hundi now, was practiced by the Chettiars almost 1,000 years ago, and there are evidences to show that we certainly practiced it all over. If I gave a slip to Paul and he went to Burma to any Chettiar agent, that guy will not ask him any questions. He'll honor him. He'll just give him 10 lakhs if he wants. If I said he's worth 10 lakhs, give him 10 lakhs, he'll give him 10 lakhs. He won't ask what the interest rates are or anything like that. It's up to him and me to settle afterwards. And Paul will settle with me and not with him. That's the way it used to be. So honesty and integrity was the most important thing that we had in the system. I'll come to it a little later. I don't know how much time you have.
This is fascinating.
But so basically the temple, if anybody defaulted, the temple authority, the people in the committee would take the decision and to make him an outcast, then nobody will deal with him. So it was a check and balance system that was through the temple authorities, both at the clan temple as well as at the village temple.
When you say nobody will deal with him, not only not marry but not do business.
At least till he comes and apologizes and he pays back and everything else, they won't deal with him. I think the rate at which we grew in the 1800s and 1900s is amazing. That's really the peak period for the Chettiars. When the British were here and earlier to that, as I said, we were trading around in this area, all the southern states. But when the British came in, I don't know how many of you are aware what happened to the money lending businesses and the banking business in the country. The Marwaris decided they played an extremely important role, and they still play a very important role in the country. The Marwaris in Marwar decided this is their country and they're not going to let the British settle anywhere down and make the rest of it. So this is my thing, and therefore they spread all over the country the moment the British came in. They moved to Calcutta, they moved to Oka, they went right down to Rameshwaram. So if you go even today, you will find a Marwari moneylender everywhere in the country, in every small town, every village and things like that. Now they started undercutting all other moneylenders and traders. So you'll see the Gujaratis, the Kachis went to Africa. The Chettiars, who were dominating in this part of the world, went to Burma, Malaysia and Singapore and Sri Lanka. So they said this is our country, we're not going to let others, but they undercut the local moneylenders and we all started trading overseas. So that's how you see the Chettiars went to Sri Lanka first, and then once they got the taste, they went to Burma. Wherever the British went, we went. Wherever, but the Marwaris occupied, they played very close friends with the British in Calcutta, but they said this is our country and we're not going to let them, we'll stay friends with them and cut the grass under their feet kind of thing. Whereas we said, where's money to be made? Let's go and make it. So, good Chettiars that we went to Sri Lanka, we went to Burma, we went to Singapore, right down to Saigon and places like that. So you have a lot of evidences in those areas with the Chettiars, the Chettiar temples, and wherever we went, we took our temples with us as well. And we built temples. So in Burma alone, there are 56 temples built by Chettiars.
Wow.
Even now you see them. And then you see them in Saigon, you see them everywhere. And so it's an interesting thing to understand the way money lending works, I suppose. But what is important is the way they maintain the culture. Only the men went overseas. The women never went till almost 1936, 37. The women never went with the men. So the men went across overseas for trading and for business, trading and money lending, and there was a complete network. When they went to Burma, it was 6 people who went in the year 1852. Just take a guess, how many multiplied to before 1930? Any guess, Paul?
60,000?
No. We're not that population, even today.
100 and odd now. Okay.
And
So
money lending
20.
firms.
Oh, firm.
Money lending firms from 6 in 1852.
15, 14, 15.
1600,
Wow.
because of the training system that they had developed. They had 5 stages of training of the Chettiar boys, and they all had to start at the age of 12. The 5 stages are Podiyan, which means a pure, literally. Arthal or Kanakapillai, which means a cashier or an assistant. Kutali, a partner. Pangali, senior partner, and a Mudaladi. So, Harvard Business School talks about today about training entrepreneurship. This entrepreneurship training was done in 1860s to early 1900 by the Chettiars, and they all trained them to become entrepreneurs and not continue to work as an employee. And every one of these terms that they went was for a period of 3 years when they went overseas. So they had to go as just at the age of 12 they start, 12, 13, 14 you start, go overseas in catamarans in the 1800s, so or in boats later, steamboats and things like that, and work and live. If you there in Singapore, those of you who go to Singapore, go to the temple. Next to the temple, there is a Kittangi still maintained. That Kittangi will have 12 different offices, or 12, 24, whatever it is. I don't know exactly the numbers, but they'll hire a complete house. The ground floor will be the offices of these 12 different firms. All they will have is a cash box in front of them and a safe at the back of it. So any customer who wants to borrow money will come to them and borrow money from any one of the 12, and there will be no competition between the 12 of them. And I was sent at the age of 14 we still had an office in Colombo. We still had an agent in Colombo who was doing the money lending business, and I was sent there when I finished my fourth form in school to be trained. And what do you think his first job that he gave me? As soon as I went, I was staying with him, and his family was there upstairs. Downstairs were the lending, one box, cash box, and one agent. That's all. And the agent, whom I knew very well, he said to me, "Go and," as soon as I had my bath and came down, he said to me, "Go and get me palm, beet leaves." So I said, "You don't chew palm, do you?" So he looked at me. I mean, he's a very, very simple, very gentle person. But he looked at me as though he'd never heard me and said, "Go and get me pan." So I didn't know what to say. I was going to open my mouth. He knew I was going to open my mouth. He showed his finger towards the cashier who was sitting on the other side, who in those days had a quarter of an anna with a hole in it, 1951. So I took that quarter of an anna, went out, came back 1.5 hours later with pan. He said, "You ought to be ashamed of being your grandfather's grandson and your father's son. Get on with your job." He dismissed me. I couldn't believe. Here was the most perfect gentleman, everything. And I said, "What's he trying to tell me?" It took me 50 years to understand what he was trying to teach me. Anybody guess what he was trying to teach me? What's the first lesson? What?
Follow instructions.
What? No. Humility. You might be the owner's son, but if you don't have the humility to accept that kind of a thing, reprimand, then you're not fit to be there. The next year when I went there for my summer, and I couldn't tally a quarter of an, 25 pies today, a quarter of an anna, 4 annas in those days in the accounts books. He said, "No dinner till you tally it." So these are the kind of training. So the 5 stages are: Pudiyan is the peon, Aduthal, assistant, Kutali, partner, Pangali, senior partner, and Mudalali. You become a Mudalali at the age of 30. So that's how they train people from 6 to 1600 in a matter of years. So this is the kind of thing that happened, and the discipline that you went through, and every stage had. Basically, there's a lot of values that in every stage that taught you. I can go on talking about it, but I think it's late in the evening, and after a drink, I'm sure I'm waffling anyway. But the important thing is they taught you. Bhakti or piety, bhakti, and all these kind of things became very, very critical and important. The values that they taught: humility, simplicity, piety, aesthetics appreciation, love for Tamil. Values, the community that they taught.
How did they teach you aesthetic
the way you set your office. Just the way, if you go into it, the kind of, the way you see the office, and you go, the Lord's picture looking down on you, everything had a little meaning or the other, but it was all, it had some reason. The way the box was kept, the way the customer had to sit, the way you take him in case he wants water or something like that, how you, everything had a meaning in it. I see it now. I mean, I spent some time looking at those kind of things. Now, I'm doing a lot of this work with a friend of mine in Singapore who really is the person who was invited to come and talk to you people. I think Lashman was invited. He's the best person because he's been doing a lot of work. His father went there as one of these youngsters, but he continued with the same business. Unlike me, I came away and we were in the Western world and trained in Birmingham or UK or then in Harvard or something like that and got into different value systems and beliefs. But he, the father and the son, still, and he's done a superb job. We are now putting together, we've put together already 8 or 10 modules about our community for teaching our children because none of them understand this. None of my children understand it, and I've got one youngster standing there watching me, listening to me. Not my niece, but they all didn't go through this. So we're now trying to say, how do we inculcate this with our children in Singapore, Malaysia, and in US and things like that. So modules are available and smaller towns and even in Chennai. So we've got these modules which we are running as Sunday school programs for the youngsters to understand their culture and their roots kind of a thing. So that's how all these things are prepared. Values to the community. In fact, if you went to the wedding tomorrow, you'll see still a lot of it is practiced. You know, when an elder comes in, when an elderly person comes in, or who's the person who, I said we don't have a priest at the time of the wedding. Who's the person who will hand over the tali? It's the eldest member. The respect for elders, the place for elders, and responsibility is something which is very important. Loyalty, tolerance, flexibility. I think this flexibility is something which I'll never forget again. When I was trained, we were told very clearly, you are rigid. What happens? You can only break. And the way it was done is very, very simple. My uncle called me one day, and I came back after my stint in Birmingham. I said, and I was doing a great job in chip products and things like that, and I found some fault with my senior. My uncle called me, and I had a big tiff with my brother who was the managing director. So he called me and gave me a pencil. And he said, break it. I just broke it without any effort. So he called for 6 pencils. So, because we are 6 of us, brothers and cousins in the family, and he gave me 6 pencils and he said, tie it together, and he said, now break it. Couldn't break it. He said, have you learned your lesson? That's all he asked me. And that was the end of it. I've never since then thought about me as an individual. If we are 6 together. That's the way we were all trained. And philanthropy is one of the most important things that they train. Now, how do they do this? It's very simple. Our accounts books, if you every year at New Year's time, Tamil New Year, around the 14th of April, 15th of April, we write our accounts book, start a fresh account book for the year, close the previous year, start the new year. There, first thing we write is for the God. Then for the partnership. There's a percentage for the God. Then the percentages of the partnership. Then a percentage for the community. Now, we talk about CSR 3%, 2%, 0.5%, and 1% today. And this, I've got my grandfather's accounts books, and I'm sure Junior here has got his accounts books as well in his house, which will show you that we had a percentage which was somewhere between 2-3% in accounts before the beginning of the year.
Ah.
So you committed for giving back to society. So that's how, fortunately, after the collapse of Burma, we saved ourselves. Because giving back, what did we given back? We had given back originally temples. But in 1913, when they had a conference of the Chettiars, there was a person called who was I know it's dinner time. I know you got your notice, but I'll try and wind up as quickly as I can. There was a person who was a polio affected person, but he was a brilliant man. Later he became Vice Chancellor. In 1913, at the age of 30, at the conference, he said, philanthropy, doing all the philanthropy for temples, and you're building temples and temples and temples, and every village and town has temples. So from Kasi to Rameshwaram, we still take care of the pujas in temples. I was fortunate enough to be invited about a month and a half ago to perform the first ever Kumbhabhishekam in Kashi Vishwanath temple for 4.5 days. Now, similarly, we do that in Rameshwaram, we do that everywhere. Now, as a community.
Let them know where the Kashi Vishwanath temple is. One may know where the temple is.
Kashi Vishwanath temple is the most important Hindu temple. It's a Shiva temple in Benares. Now, why do we all go to Benares to die? Do you know? Anyone? Any person? Why do we want to go to Benares? Everybody goes to die, or if we are dead, we send our ashes there. Anybody can guess why we do that? Pardon? Sorry? It's the oldest living city in the world. Exactly. Not heaven. It's the only place where river Ganges flows from south to north. And if you go there and put your wristing needle and go to Google, you'll see it's looking at Mount Kailash. That's why we all go there to die. So Benares is an extremely important, it's a 5,000-year-old temple. It's an extremely important temple for the Hindus. And there, the Kumbhabhishekam, for the first time, the sanctorum being anointed again, was done just about a month and a half ago, and our family was invited to do the puja part of it, and anointing was done by another family. So it was an extremely auspicious thing. So we do this from Rameshwaram to Benares and all over and you'll see chow trees all the way through, because that's what we have to do. We had to give back to society, and this is one of the things that we did. So there are business values. There are values for every aspect of life, and these were all taught during that period of training, particularly in the first 2-3 periods when you're a youngster. And similarly, the girls were trained exactly the same way by the mothers and the grandmothers at home with all these values. Now, again, when you talk about, in your things here, Sarmaya thing, you talk about food. Now, and why is Chettinad food so popular? Chettinad, today's population is only 120,000 people. Why is the food so popular? One, because the Chettiars were abroad, they liked the taste of food, and therefore they tried to get their ladies. And the ladies didn't, till 1938, they didn't go abroad. So they had to take their cooks, or they had to cook themselves. So they learned to preserve the food around here and take them overseas with them in the ships and keep them and eat them. Similarly, all the churmurs, also, all the Chettiar churmurs, which you get a lot of it around Karaikudi.
You all have it in your
Everyone's got a
basket in your room. All those kind of things were developed because of this overseas habit and trading, and the men had to have something which they really liked and think back to home. This is the background for why the cuisine became such an important thing, and that when we finished that sojourn for 3 years and came back, all we had to do is eat and sleep. So that's another reason why the Chettiar food is so popular and so good. So, but I'd like to, last few minutes, I'd like to talk a little bit about the philanthropy part of it. So it was the 1913 conference, where the conference decided we'll start spending more on education, healthcare, and things like that. So if you see, apart from the temples, now the a community of 120,000 people anywhere in the world, show me which has contributed 3 universities to this country. There's a university in this town called the Alagappa University, but the first one was Namla University in Chidambaram, and the third one is Tyagaraja University in Madurai. 100 and odd colleges and polytechnics in southern part of the country. At least 100 schools. Every town here, this family, for example, the MSMM family, have their own school here. So my family has 4 schools in Chennai, 1 polytechnic, 4 hospitals. So this is something, giving back is almost second nature. And that's why the retirement comes in. So when you retire, you spend your time in giving back to society, sharing your wealth, not just your wealth, but your knowledge with society. And that's why I'm here, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it's given you some idea about the community. And thank you very much for sitting very patiently and listening to me.
Thank you. Couple of quick questions. Okay.
Oh, lots of questions. One mic for questions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, firstly, thank you for the invitation for tomorrow's wedding. Even though it's not a free meal, but I think we'll have to depend on Pavitra and Paul to accept. But more importantly, you stressed upon the values, 5 or 6 values, which are very important. How do you reconcile the importance of these values with all the conflicting signals that the young Chettiars would get from society, formal education, etc.? So, how do you actually blend the two, and how do you manage to kind of still try and inculcate those values in the community?
It's getting very, it got very tough even in my generation, but it's getting tougher and tougher as we go along. But I think the way we're trying. I don't guarantee that it's happening the same way, but small little examples. Take, for example, the habit of saving and sharing. What we've tried to do when they're young kids, we've given them 3 or 4 piggy banks. And my family, I'm talking about my immediate family, 4 piggy banks. And we said, whenever anybody gives you a gift, you decide what you want to put for yourself, you decide what you want to share with your friends in one piggy bank, and you decide what you want to give to somebody who hasn't got anything at all. You decide, and then they put that down so that they understand that there is a community which requires regular help. And when they grow up, they opened up 3 or 4, one for investment. So we opened up 3, 4 bank accounts and asked them from piggy bank move on to the bank accounts. Put that money into the bank accounts so that they understand the value of sharing the money with others. Giving back to society. Also, every time there is a function, for example, the floods in Chennai, one of our schools, the soccer club took over the entire school and said, we're going to rehabilitate the entire village, one of the villages, into the school, and we'll take care of them. So at the end of it, those kids came and asked our kids to come and make sure that they share both the experiences as well as share and ask our kids to hand over the take home thing for them to rehabilitate, to go back to their homes, the huts, the rice, the dal, the fruits, the vegetables, and utensils. And so when my child goes there and hands it over to the other child, it begins to understand. We try and encourage our children to spend some time in the schools, in the two schools, and but it's not so easy now because it's getting more and more difficult as generations go. But we're trying to develop some of these things which will teach them values, which will last them for a longer time. I think this is the only way. That's what we have done so far. I don't know if that's answered.
Thank you.
So my question is with respect to all the antiques and the beautiful stuff that you get in the Chettinad region. And what I've heard is that you gave your daughters a lot of things. You know, if it was enamel, you gave them a truckload. If it was silver, you gave them a truckload. If it was bronze or brass or copper, you gave them truckloads of it. Why was that? Why was so much given? And most of them never used anything. So sometimes when you go and buy these things, they're brand new.
Yeah.
Hundreds of years later as well.
No, it's not 100 years. My mother used every bit of what she got, but my wife didn't. Now that's the reason is, I think you've got to understand that. You've got to understand the culture. The men went to trade abroad, so all these things that you see, all the Czechoslovakian stuff that you see in the shops in Karaikudi, all the imported stuff that you see in Karaikudi were all bought by the men because their women wanted it, and these guys went away for 3 years and didn't see their wives, and they were scared of coming back home without anything. So they would buy everything that the ladies would want. The mat, from Burma, porcelain, the lacquer work from Burma, all those kind of things came in, and they were all used. I mean, we still use them at home. Now, when we have a wedding, everything had to be used. We never went to hire the utensils. So these were all. So they were. When my wife got married, I think she got about 100 beds. Why? Because it was dormitory accommodation, and because if you see the houses, which you will see tomorrow or day after, the houses are dormitory accommodation. There are no private rooms. If you see the house, and then you'll understand. In the dormitory accommodation, all the men will sleep on the front side, and all the women will sleep on the rear. And there'll be only one bathroom in the front and one bathroom in the back. So, and the beds were all spread out at night, and go to sleep and then roll it and put it away. So if you want to see it, I can show it to you tomorrow in our house. We still have all of those beds, all of those things still there, intact, not sold out yet. But it's coming because they don't want it anymore because there's no way to use them. There are a number of hotels, there are a number of places, and the weddings are also shrunk. Please understand, the weddings used to be. My wedding was a 3-day affair in the late 50s, but imagine the weddings that were done during my father's time. It was a 1 whole week's affair. So they had to have all the utensils to cook because you couldn't go and hire those utensils at that time. So that's why all these utensils and things like that, but they're no use now.
Anyone else?
I think everybody's hungry, so.
I'm sure money lending must have also been quite a risky business. So, was there a sort of ceiling on the interest rates, or what would happen if somebody didn't pay, or things like that? They all decide together.
Yeah. I think between whatever I can see, between 1852 to about 1930, 1940. Actually 1930 when the crash came in, monetary crash came in, was the first bad experience. There's a whole lot of things on Burma, which is really where we made our money. Singapore and Malaysia also, but most of us went there and started. It is a risky business, but the default rates is amazingly very, very low, extremely low, because I think the local people were, and the way, you will never see, you see my grandfather or any rich person there, they never behave rich. They behave like one another. They'll talk their first thing they'll do is to go and learn their language. Then they'll wear just this but not the shirt. I mean, you see photographs all over, and a cloth around their waist. Very simple living styles, and they all live together. So I think the rate of return of money coming back was very, very high till the crash took place or the war started. That's when everything got collapsed, and that's when we lost everything and came back with nothing back. And that's why we have to put down. See, actually the revival today is mainly because of those houses that they built and all those utensils that you see. You know what happened? Today there's a complete revival of education. You know that 1913 resolution of building colleges and schools came in very, very handy. So those who couldn't go back, to business, went to study in these colleges, and now almost everybody everywhere is well educated, and therefore they get professional jobs all over. A lot of them are becoming doctors and engineers. Nobody wants to go into business. And after about 10, 20 years of engineering and business, they're all now moving into business. So slowly there is a comeback on business, but all that is because one, they had all those utensils to sell or their homes to sell. The teakwood alone in every house today is worth almost 1 crore rupees. The teakwood that came, and all this teak came from Burma. It just floated as logs on the sea behind the catamarans and came to the sea coast, and from there 30 miles interior came by bullock carts to build these houses. So that's the kind of thing that you notice when you go and see some of these houses. Okay.
Wonderful.